Hi everybody, welcome back. It's Tina Wells here from Paleo Cooking Live. I'm a paleo chef and a Whole30 certified coach, and today we're gonna work on Thanksgiving. And right now, I'm gonna show you a really fun recipe. And when I say fun, I mean Funyuns, okay? You know those green bean casseroles that have the canned mushroom soup and those canned, crispy, terrible fried things that barely resemble onions. Well, we're gonna upgrade that recipe. So not only is it gonna be delicious, but it's gonna have so many nutrients. It's gonna be packed with nutrients. And the thing that makes the Funyuns so fun is shallots. I have chopped up some shallots, and if you're not sure what a shallot is, it's really just this combination onion garlic sort of it's just delicious, and they're very simple to prep and use for everything. In fact, both recipes that I'm doing today are going to have the fried shallots, and all I did was break them up because they're almost like garlic cloves inside. There'll be 2 or 3 sections, and then just slice those very thin. And I have about a cup of avocado oil here. I love to use avocado oil because it has a very high smoking point, so it's easy for frying. And I was just gonna get a little bit of tapioca flour. You don't have to use tapioca flour, but I've found that it makes them just a little bit crispier and just a little more flavorful. They stay crispy longer. You can see here I've already fried a little bit. I've got these with the tapioca flour, and they're still nice and firm. And I have these that I didn't put the tapioca flour, and they're getting a little floppy. So if you want them to hold up a little better, you can add the tapioca flour. I like tapioca flour because it's grain-free. It's made from the cassava plant, and I'm just sprinkling a little bit of that onto these shallots. Set that aside. I'm just going to toss them around a little bit. I just want them to have a light coating so that when they fry, they get crispy. And this oil is nice and hot. You can see that it's getting nice and shimmery. And I'm doing it in a smaller skillet, and I'll tell you why. I want the oil to be deeper, like a deep fry. So since I'm only using a cup of oil, I went with a smaller pan, and it makes the oil deeper. If you need to fry more than this at one time, then use a bigger pan, but use more oil. So if you were doubling it, you would use 2 cups. So I'm just gonna drop these in, and you can see they're gonna sizzle right away. And I'll probably do them in a couple batches so that they don't get too crowded. And I have this handy basket here. Just gonna move those aside that I already had samples of for you. And I love that crispy idea of something on top of the green bean casserole, but my mother never cooked with canned soup, so I never cooked with canned soup. And I'm gonna show you a really simple way to make a delicious mushroom sauce that's gonna be better than the canned soup. Full of nutrients, no sodium or any of those terrible preservatives that keep that can of soup on the shelf for who knows how long, right? Because those things last forever. And you have to be very careful when you're cooking these shallots. Let me tell you, they will go from golden brown to burnt in no time flat. I'm gonna grab a little fork to help me scoop these out. And I like this basket because they can drain right away. And look how nice and crispy those are already. Oh, they smell delicious. I love onions, any kind of onions. Oh. And you know me, making a big mess, right? Here I go. So that's all those needed, right? Not even a minute, and they're done. I'm just gonna spread them out on this paper towel so you can see how nice and crispy they are. I love tapioca flour. It's just a simple way to fry almost anything. You've seen me do the already pre-cooked fried shrimp. Just scoop those onto there so we don't make a mess. And they're hot. Crispy and mild oniony flavor. So delicious. So you get the hang of this, right? We're gonna use these on both recipes. As I said, we're gonna use them on the green bean casserole, and also I'm making Brussels sprouts with fig vinaigrette and bacon and crispy shallots. So if we're gonna do some crispy shallots, let's just do a bunch, right? And the great thing about this green bean recipe that I'm gonna show you is you can do it partially in advance, stick it in the fridge or even the freezer, and get it out the morning of Thanksgiving, heat it up, and add the shallots at the very end, right before you serve it. Aren't these fabulous? I just love these things. I just want to throw them in salads and everything. So you get the hang of that, right? There we go. Got the rest of those out of there, and we're going to set those aside until we need them later. And let me move this hot pan of oil. Just going to come on over here. And I'm going to grab the pan for the next recipe. This is the great thing about induction burners, right? I can touch it and it's not hot. The heat is conducted through magnetic energy. So the bottom of this pan is for induction. It's magnetic. Not all pans are. And as soon as the pan comes in contact with the magnet in the burner, it gets hot. Very simple. Just gonna turn that back on. And as soon as hello, come back. I'm having technical difficulties with my little robo camera. So anyway, as soon as I put the pan back on the burner, it starts to conduct the heat again. So the pan is hot. I'm gonna grab the ingredients for the green bean casserole and I'll be right back. Here I have some onion and garlic already chopped, and I've got it diced pretty fine. So the difference between a dice and a mince or a chop is gonna be the size. The technique is all the same. So this is gonna be kind of like between a dice and a mince. And I'm just gonna put about 2 tablespoons of oil and add these onions and garlic right away. And I have the heat up, so they're gonna go pretty fast. I don't like to stir them too much at first. I like to just get them sort of going and nice and flat and even so they cook evenly. The next ingredient is gonna be some mushrooms. I have these diced up to the same size as the onion. And then we're gonna make a sauce with coconut milk and some nutritional yeast. So it's gonna have a nice cheesy, nutty flavor, but no dairy. And I've already cooked the green beans. I just made sure that they were cut to a nice bite-sized piece. I blanched them in some hot salted water, boiling salted water, and then I rinsed them in the colander with cold water to stop the cooking process. They're still a crisp tender, okay? So not exactly, well, I like to eat them this way, but they're gonna get baked, so you want them to be a little on the undone side so that they're not completely mushy when you take them out of the oven after they've been baked. And you know, that's the other thing about that traditional green bean casserole. It's typically made with canned green beans, which are also full of sodium and all sorts of bad stuff, and we won't talk about that. We're gonna thicken the sauce, again with tapioca flour. I have a 1/4 cup of tapioca flour here. And I have a cup of full fat organic coconut milk. And I have my favorite, Kettle and Fire bone broth. This is chicken bone broth. And I'm gonna measure a cup of that. I'm just gonna do that right now while we're waiting for those onions to saute. We just wanna sweat them. We don't really need them to caramelize just yet. We don't want anything to have an overcooked flavor, and I'm just gonna salt those. Remember to layer your seasonings as you go. So just a little salt and pepper right there, and these guys are getting nice and translucent. That's what we want. And we'll just give those another second or two. You can see I'm stirring from the outside and pushing everything into the center. And then I just give the pan a little shake. And that helps level everything off. That way it's all coming in contact with the bottom of the pan where the heat source is, and it all cooks evenly. And those are ready to go. So now we're gonna add the mushrooms. This is 4 ounces of baby bellas. They're my favorite. I think they have the most flavor. I'm gonna stir those right in. And you know, when we cook mushrooms, we wait for the liquid to be released. That's how we get a nice flavorful mushroom that has a nice texture and not soggy. I'm just gonna stir those right in and give them a little shake, and that will not take long at all. So what else do you have planned for Thanksgiving? I've got my veggie prep today. You're gonna see me do the green beans and the Brussels sprouts. Next week, I'm gonna have potatoes. So I'm gonna show you some really fun ways to do dairy-free and grain-free potato recipes. So they will have all these wonderful ingredients packed with nutrients. You're gonna feed your family some really healthy alternatives for Thanksgiving this year, and you're gonna walk away from the table feeling satisfied, but not so full that you need a nap. Although, there's nothing wrong with a nap, right? I always sleep through football anyway. So these are getting really nice. Just a few more seconds until that liquid starts to come out. It's happening already. That's not the oil in the pan. That's the liquid coming out of the mushrooms. Okay? So while that's finishing, wow, it smells so good in here, you guys. I'm going to add to my chicken stock a 1/4 cup of tapioca flour. And the reason I'm adding it to the chicken stock is because I'm making a slurry. A slurry is basically, it's also called a liaison, and it's something that helps to bind the solid with the liquid. So I'm gonna pour the coconut milk right into the pan, and that's gonna start to reduce right away. And if you wanted to use the coconut milk for the slurry instead of the chicken broth, that's fine too. It doesn't really matter. But I'm making sure that this is completely mixed in and there isn't any tapioca starch settling out into the bottom. As soon as this comes to a boil, we're gonna see this start to bubble, and then we're gonna add the stock with the tapioca starch, and it's going to thicken right away. Basically, the tapioca starch is acting just as a cornstarch or other thickener, or if you typically made a sauce like this with a roux, which would be flour and butter, but since we're not doing dairy or gluten, we're leaving those out. Now this is getting nice and bubbly, and I'm going to give it one more stir and add the chicken stock with the tapioca flour. If you just threw the tapioca flour into this hot broth or into this hot sauce and tried to stir it, it would just get lumpy. So it's always best to dissolve it into a liquid before adding it to anything hot. And it's the same principle with cornstarch as well, if you use cornstarch, but we're trying to keep everything gluten and grain free here. And there it goes. You can just see it get nice and thick. So we're gonna turn this off, and the last ingredient is the nutritional yeast. It's 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. I don't like to sprinkle nutritional yeast on top of things. I think it gives you a weird, grainy, finished texture. Oh, and it smells like cheese already. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is so delicious. And I'm gonna give it one more hit of salt and pepper. And do you ever taste your food as you're going along, as you're cooking? Taste your food. It's the #1 rule in a professional kitchen, is to grab a spoon and give it a taste. And it's surprising that we all still have taste buds from sticking spoons into hot pans like this, but it's mushroomy, it's oniony. Could use a little more salt. That's why you taste it. And if you're using a good quality salt, this is a kosher salt or a nice finishing salt, say for like a Maldon sea salt, don't be afraid of using too much salt. I don't care what your cardiologist says. You need salt in your system. Just don't use that iodized processed stuff that actually has sugar in it. So you can see now this is nice and thick. And I've got my green beans in this green bean casserole. So I'm just gonna pour this in. It's not too much sauce. It's gonna blend in and make these green beans nice and creamy. Look at that. Nice clean pan. Put that in the sink. And now I'm just gonna stir these together, trying not to get a lot of the sauce on the edges of the pan. I did spray this casserole dish with some avocado spray. You can use ghee spray, whatever you have. Again, trying to keep with the nice oils that are unprocessed, cold pressed oils. So again, avocado oil, ghee is just clarified butter. We take the dairy solids out. Now I'm just gonna flatten that out. And it's gonna go into a 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes. Or at this point, just let it cool and put it in the refrigerator. Cover it tightly, and it's done until Thanksgiving morning, when you can bake it and put the Funyuns on top. Let me put this aside and show you what it looks like finished. I have one already here in the oven. And it's nice and hot. And it's still a little bubbly. Isn't that delicious? And it's creamy, and the green beans finished cooking to just the right texture. And now we can take these Funyuns and sprinkle them all over the top. It's still hot. And if you like more Funyuns, put more Funyuns. Grab my oven mitts so I can show that to you. There you go. Green bean casserole. No soup, no canned anything. Well, canned coconut milk, but we'll take a pass on that one. Let me grab the ingredients for the Brussels sprouts, and I'll be right back. It's still hot. So Brussels sprouts are so easy. I love my Brussels sprouts. What I've already done before I came on here live is I cooked 3 pieces of bacon. If you like more bacon, add more bacon. But basically we're just gonna chop this up and use it on the top of the Brussels sprouts. But the best part is, this is the rendered bacon fat. So when I cook the bacon, you know, the fat just renders out, leaves us with nice crispy bacon. We're gonna use this to cook the Brussels sprouts. These are just sliced up, no big deal. You can buy them already sliced if you'd rather. I like to get them at the farmer's market once in a while. If I'm doing this during the week, I cheat and I buy the ones that are already sliced. But you know, save time where you can. As soon as this starts to get hot, we're just gonna throw in the Brussels sprouts. And while these are cooking, I'm gonna show you how to make a fig vinaigrette. I love this fig vinaigrette because it has a delicious sweet flavor, sweetened naturally from the dried figs, and it balances out the flavor of the Brussels sprouts really perfectly. So this is about ready to go. Just gonna add these in. Put them all in at once. Yeah, I know, I make a mess. They will cook down. This pot might look a little small, but give it time and they will cook down. And now, while those guys are doing their thing, I'll get the ingredients for the Brussels sprouts. The fig vinaigrette. I like to buy the dried figs. They look like this. If your dried figs start to get this sugary outside, that happens naturally, okay? There's nothing wrong with these figs. It's not mold. It's just from the drying process, and these are organic, so they're not dried with any sulfites or anything like that. They just get that kind of funky, sugary, but that just goes to show you how much natural sugar there are in figs already. So no need to add any extra sweetener with this. I soaked a few figs, chopped them up, and soaked them so they're a little soft because we're going to use the burr mixer to blend all this, and we want it to be nice and smooth and no lumps from the figs. Get all of this out of the way. I'll get my burr mixer. If you don't have a burr mixer, you can use a blender. Where can you see me? Let's do this. Let me give these a quick toss because we want that bacon fat to coat all the pieces so that they get cooked down. You can see they're getting cooked down already. This is one that's so easy to do the day of Thanksgiving. It doesn't make sense to do it in advance. And I love my green vegetables, so I'm gonna make as many green vegetables as I can fit on the table. Ooh, and they're starting to get nice and brown. And I'm gonna give these a little salt, but remember they're gonna be finished with the bacon bits, also not from a jar. We're using real bacon. And they're getting that nice bright green color. This is done in 10 minutes, so really no need to go crazy. So here's the ingredients for the fig dressing. Got the figs already in here. I soaked them for a little bit right in this cup and drained the water. I've got about a tablespoon of minced shallot. Yes, I love my shallots. And if you're gonna buy ingredients, then use them in more than one dish. Why buy 3 different kinds of, you know, things when you can use one and have the same delicious flavor and everything? Save yourself some money and some time. So that's about a tablespoon of shallots, and then I'm gonna add a tablespoon of this whole grain mustard. This is from New Primal. It's got distilled vinegar, no Dijon. This guy, let's give it a little break here. And turn it down some. Not sure why I'm getting an error message. Whoops. Something always goes wrong, right? They're actually close to finished already. You can see how they're starting to get tender. I just like the middles of these whites to look a little more browned, but this pan is hot, so let's see how we do with the heat off. Back to the dressing. So I started to say Noble Made is one of my favorite brands, and I love this mustard, and it's Dijon-less, but it's considered a coarse Dijon. So no wine, totally Whole30 compatible. And the other ingredients are, I have a champagne vinegar, and I have a white balsamic, okay? So a 1/4 cup of each is going in. I like to mix the vinegars. I don't like to go straight balsamic because it tends to get a little too sweet for a dressing like this. And then we're just gonna whip it up. I'm gonna start on slow because I don't want it splattering all over me. And I'm gonna put my hand around the cup a little bit. And you can see this is starting to come together. You wanna make sure that those pieces of fig are getting really nice and blended in. Sometimes they like to get stuck in the blade. They're not doing that this time, so that's good. And it's getting nice and thick. And I just keep my hand around the stem of the burr mixer like this to keep it from splattering. You could put a towel. I get lazy, I don't put a towel. And now I'm gonna turn it on, and with it running, I'm gonna add a cup of avocado oil. You can do olive oil, you can do whatever. I like the avocado oil because it has a nice light flavor. And when I add it with the burr mixer running, it's gonna emulsify and make this dressing nice and thick. So it's gonna be like a creamy dressing without needing any dairy. My cord's in the way. Here we go. So I'm just putting this in a nice, slow, thin stream. And moving the burr mixer slightly up and down. You can see already it's getting a lighter color. That means that the oil is emulsifying in with the vinegar. Emulsification is when the molecules attach to each other. You're never going to get oil and another kind of liquid to mix. But when you emulsify, it looks like it's mixed. Technically, at a molecular level, it isn't. So I'm kind of folding it up from the bottom now so that it'll continue to blend. If I put it all the way to the bottom at this point, it's going to kind of stick. And then once in a while I stop just to make sure any oil that might be floating on the top is getting completely blended in because we don't want it to break. It'll look kind of cracked and curdled if it breaks. Just this last bit of oil going in now. And this is the same technique for mayonnaise. If there was an egg in here, it would get nice and thick like mayonnaise. The only thing I want to do last is check the seasoning. It's going to be very sharp from having 2 kinds of vinegars. And that looks done. I'm just going to take a spoon and give it a taste. Oh, yum. Make a big batch of this, stick it in your fridge, keep it around for any vegetables. It's so perfect. And I love that tangy flavor that goes with the nice Brussels sprouts. So let's see what's happening with our Brussels sprouts here. Can we get this burner to turn back on? I guess it would help if I plugged it in again, right? There we go. And we'll just give these guys a couple more tosses. And you can see just from being in this hot pan, because this burner gets so hot, they started to pick up some nice color. One of the things that is my biggest pet peeve when it comes to Brussels sprouts is deep fried Brussels sprouts. I don't know whoever thought of that. Somebody in a kitchen who was just super lazy, I think, and wanted to cook stuff really fast. A deep fryer is just gonna burn the heck out of them on the outside, and then they're hard and crunchy in the middle. I think it's a bad way to make Brussels sprouts. I don't recommend it. Good news is most of you don't have a deep fryer at home, so don't try it. Just saute them in a little bacon fat. The bacon fat is naturally sweet, and you get so much more flavor out of the Brussels sprouts. And we're really just looking for them to get a little limp. And if we have some dark spots where they're, you know, getting nice and caramelized, we want that too, because that brings out the sweetness. Brussels sprouts are a naturally sweet vegetable. And that's just gonna make them even more sweet on their own. We don't need a bunch of added sugar in everything we make. So while those are finishing up, I will cut up the bacon. Don't buy pre-cooked bacon or bacon bits. It's an evil plot against American society. I'm just taking off these pieces that have a little bit of extra fat. And I'm gonna go through them very quickly. They shatter on their own because they're already, can you see? They're already crispy from cooking. That's it. Use a nice sharp knife. Use a wooden cutting board. I like my plastic cutting boards sometimes, but, and look at this. They're just a nice size. I mean, you get a good bite of bacon with that. Who would want to eat that? You're creating flavors and textures, and you're balancing your dishes, and they're nutritious, delicious nutrition. So I started to say earlier, we've got vegetables today, potatoes next week, and then the last Thanksgiving prep is going to be brining and cooking a turkey. I'm going to show you how to do a turkey breast on the grill. Now here's the deal with turkey that I discovered a long time ago. I have one oven. I do not have like this total Mac Daddy kitchen here, right? It's just like anybody else's kitchen in any house. So once my oven is filled with turkey and the bottom shelf has like some side dishes, my warming drawer doesn't even work in this thing anymore. It's so old. So I decided when I had a lot of people over one Thanksgiving that I was going to grill a turkey breast and roast the turkey. That way everybody has two different styles of turkey. They don't get tired of turkey because it's not dry. I brine it. I discovered a fabulous dry brine recipe that I'll share with you. And then I'll show you the technique for roasting on the grill. It opens up the oven for other things. Everybody can grill, right? Grilling is so simple. And you'll see how fast this turkey breast cooks. You can use the same technique for a whole turkey. I rather do 2 small turkeys than 1 giant turkey anyway because the meat never cooks evenly. And you're gonna see that it's delicious and your family will have a whole renewed love for turkey. I'm just gonna put these Brussels sprouts in this little dish because they look fabulous. You can see how they've gotten some nice color and they're done. We want them to be a little crisp tender, but not so overcooked. Those look delicious. Now we're just gonna spoon some of this dressing on top. A couple tablespoons is all you need because it's really intense. Just like that, and toss that in. Maybe a little more salt because we like the crunch of the salt too. It just adds another texture. And last but not least, the bacon bits on top. Just mound those up like that. I think 3 pieces of bacon is enough, don't you? And there's the Brussels sprouts. Oh, and let me tell you the most important thing about the turkey. If you sign up with ButcherBox right now, ButcherBox is giving you a free turkey with your first order. Free turkey. I'm not kidding. Between 10 and 14 pound turkey coming in your ButcherBox. It's $149. It's the best meat I have ever cooked or eaten. My entire family agrees. It's a great way to check out ButcherBox. If you decide you hate it, you can cancel. There's no commitment. And just go on the website. The link is on my website. If you use my link, I would greatly appreciate it. And get a free turkey, and then I'll show you how to cook it, and you will be thrilled. So thanks again for joining me today. We have these lovely Brussels sprouts, the green bean casserole, the Funyuns, and the fig vinaigrette that you're gonna put on everything, I promise you. And I hope to see you next week when we do some fun potato recipes. Thanks for joining me. Love you all. I'm gonna go turn my camera off now and it's gonna follow me. So here we go. Have a great day.